Mr. Fox is still here with me? Ah, Mr. Fox is feeling okay because he's actually still got his tail. Nice bushy tail foxes have. Lovely big bushy tail. But our poor Mr. Fox has now lost his tail in our story. I wonder how he's feeling. How do you think he's feeling? So Mr. Fox is going to continue sitting with us and sit and listen nicely, because we're going to read our chapter number 4, and it's called The Terrible Shovel. Now, why are there now shovels involved? Can you remember? What are those 3 farmers going to do now? Boggart, Bean and Bunce. They've shot the fox. They haven't managed to kill him, but they have managed to get rid of his tail. They've shot his tail off, haven't they? But the tail's not good enough. Bean picks it up and he throws it away. They want the fox. In fact, they're now thinking there's a whole family of them down there. We get the lot of them. So we'll get no more turkeys or chickens or geese nicked at all. So what do you think they're going to do with shovels? Can you remember what their plan was? Let's find out. Down in the hole, Mrs. Fox was tenderly licking the stump of Mr. Fox's tail to stop the bleeding. What does tenderly mean? Is she doing it really rough, or is she doing it gently, do you think? It was the finest tail for miles around, she said between licks. It hurts, said Mr. Fox. I know it does, sweetheart, but it'll soon get better. And it will soon grow again, Dad, said one of the small foxes. It will never grow again, said Mr. Fox. I shall be tailless for the rest of my life. He looked very glum. So we know he's looking glum. How do we think he's feeling? So he thought he had the best tail around. Probably very proud of his tail. There was no food for the foxes that night, and soon the children dozed off. Dozed is quite an old-fashioned word. What does dozed mean? Maybe you can talk to your adult about it. Then Mrs. Fox dozed off, but Mr. Fox couldn't sleep. There's a clue there for you. Because of the pain in the stump of his tail. Well, he thought, I suppose I'm lucky to be alive at all. And now they've found our hole, we're going to have to move out as soon as possible. We'll never get any peace if we... What? What was that? He turned his head sharply and listened. The noise he heard now was the most frightening noise a fox can ever hear. The scrape, scrape, scraping of shovels digging into soil. Wake up, he shouted. They're digging us out. Mrs. Fox was wide awake in 1 second. She sat up, quivering all over. Are you sure that's it? She whispered. I'm positive. Listen. They'll kill my children, cried Mrs. Fox. Never, said Mr. Fox. But darling, they will, sobbed Mrs. Fox. You know they will. Scrunch, scrunch, scrunch. Can you remember what these words are called? When words are written in the text to suggest a noise. We talked about it lots at school. It begins with a on. I wonder if you can impress your parents at home. Small stones and bits of earth began falling from the roof of the tunnel. How will they kill us, Mummy? Asked one of the small foxes. His round black eyes were huge with fright. Will there be dogs? He said. Mrs. Fox began to cry. She gathered her 4 children close to her and held them tight. Suddenly there was an especially loud crunch above their heads, and the sharp end of a shovel came right through the ceiling. The sight of this awful thing seemed to have an electric effect upon Mr. Fox, who jumped up and shouted, I've got it! Come on! There's not a moment to lose! Why didn't I think of it before? Think of what, Dad? A fox can dig quicker than any man, shouted Mr. Fox, beginning to dig. Nobody in the world can dig as quick as a fox. The soil began to fly out furiously behind Mr. Fox as he started to dig for dear life with his front feet. Mrs. Fox ran forward to help him. So did the 4 children. Go downwards, ordered Mr. Fox. We've got to go deep as we possibly can. The tunnel began to grow longer and longer. It sloped steeply downward. Deeper and deeper below the surface of the ground it went. The mother and father and all 4 of the children were digging together. Their front legs were moving so fast you couldn't see them. And gradually, the scrunching and scraping of the shovels became fainter and fainter. After about an hour, Mr. Fox stopped digging. "Hold it," he said. They all stopped. They turned and looked back at the long tunnel they had just dug. All was very quiet. "Phew," said Mr. Fox. "I think we've done it. They'll never get us as deep as this. Well done, everybody." They all sat down, panting for breath. Why are they panting, do you think? And Mrs. Fox said to her children, "I should like you to know that if it wasn't for your father, we should all be dead by now. Your father is a fantastic fox." Mr. Fox looked at his wife and she smiled. He loved her more than ever when she said things like that. So that's how a fox gets his name. Fantastic Mr. Fox. So he's feeling really glum at the beginning because he's lost his tail. How do you think he's feeling when his wife pays him such a lovely compliment? This takes us up to chapter 5, and it's called The Terrible Tractors. Now, just with that title, can you make a prediction about what might happen in the next chapter?